The pre-dawn phone call shattered the stillness of Wild Heart Rescue. On the line, a breathless hiker whispered about a bloodied Mustang stallion in Red River Gorge. But it was the tremor in his voice that made Dr. Elena Rodriguez pause mid-coffee sip. "Ma'am, I've hunted these hills 50 years, he confessed. But I ain't never seen nothing like this. That horse is dying, sure as sunrise. But he won't leave that baby." Elena's stainless steel thermos hit the floor with a clang. Baby? In her 23 years rescuing wildlife, no protocol covered this. The vet's hands shook as she grabbed her trauma kit, the words "human infant" circling like vultures in her mind. The Kentucky limestone cliffs loomed like crumbling sentinels as Elena's team picked their way down the treacherous slope. The stench of infection hit first, then the buzzing of flies. Above the canyon rim, a dozen turkey vultures rode the thermals with dreadful patience. Marcus Chun, their hulking equine specialist, froze mid-step. "Mother of God," he breathed. There in the bloody dirt lay the most magnificent stallion Elena had ever seen, 16 hands of quivering muscle. His bay coat matted with gore, his ribs heaving like bellows. But it was his eyes that told the real story, not glassy with shock, but blazing with terrifying purpose. Then the wind shifted, and the team heard it. Not the stallion's labored breathing, not the canyon's whisper, a thin, reedy wail that didn't belong in this wilderness. Kneeling in the iron-scented dirt, Dr. Elena's experienced fingers traced the stallion's wounds, for parallel gashes scoring his shoulder, the unmistakable signature of a mountain lion's claws. The injuries were at least 36 hours old. "He should be dead," she murmured. The stallion's nostrils flared as young vet tech Sarah Williams edged closer, her medical bag trembling in her grip. Then the impossible happened. The wild Mustang, who should have been fighting them tooth and hoof, deliberately lifted his massive body just enough to reveal what he'd been shielding with his life. A tiny human infant, no more than 6 months old, swaddled in a miraculously clean pink blanket, her dark curls damp with sweat but her chest rising and falling steadily. The stallion lowered his head and blew gently across the baby's face in a gesture so tender it stopped Elena's breath. Crimson droplets pattered onto the Kentucky clay like gruesome rain. The stallion's life was literally draining into the earth. Yet he maintained his protective arch over the baby, his legs locked in a final, trembling stand. Sarah's tears cut tracks through the canyon dust on her cheeks as she took in the scene. The careful way the horse had positioned his body to block the cliff winds, the shallow depression he dug to cradle the infant. "He made her a nest," she choked out. Elena's stethoscope slid over the baby's chest. The heartbeat was rapid but strong. As if sensing the examination, the stallion nickered softly, his blood-flecked muzzle hovering inches above the child's face. In 20 years of veterinary work, Elena had never witnessed such devotion across species lines. Somewhere in the gathering storm clouds above, the first distant thrum of helicopter blades promised salvation, and an impossible choice. The canyon held its breath. Then a sound so fragile it barely registered over the wind. The baby's eyes fluttered open, focusing not on the terrified humans surrounding her, but on the scarred, noble face of her equine guardian. Her tiny fingers flexed toward his muzzle. The stallion responded with a sound no wild Mustang should know, a deep, rolling nicker straight from a mare's lullaby repertoire. Marcus crossed himself. "Sweet Jesus," he breathed. "That horse just talked to that baby like she's his own foal." Elena's radio crackled. Flight for life was 8 minutes out. But the stallion's front knees were buckling, his strength failing even as his will held firm. The baby's lips moved silently, forming what might have been a smile for her four-legged savior as the world tilted dangerously around them all. The blanket's satin edging gleamed incongruously bright against the dirt. This was no accident. Someone had carefully wrapped the infant before abandoning her. Elena's stomach twisted as she noted the precise folds, the hospital-grade fabric. This was no desperate teen mom. This was calculated. The stallion's breath came in ragged gusts now, but when Sarah reached for the baby, he startled them all by gently grasping the tech's sleeve in his teeth. Not biting, just asking. "It's okay, big guy," Sarah sobbed, showing him the infant. "We'll keep her safe." As the Flight for Life medic took the child, the stallion's scream tore through the gorge, a sound of such profound loss that even the circling buzzards startled skyward. Back at the helicopter, the baby began wailing inconsolably until the medic did something inexplicable. He held her up to the window where she could see her protector one last time. The medical helicopter's interior vibrated with urgency as Dr. James Mitchell, a silver-haired trauma specialist who'd seen everything, assessed the canyon baby. His experienced fingers found dehydration, mild hypothermia, but remarkably no serious injuries. "This makes no sense," he muttered to the flight nurse. "No 6-month-old survives 12 hours in the elements without water." Then the baby stirred, her tiny fist closing around James's stethoscope with surprising strength. The stallion's musky scent still clung to her blanket. Suddenly, the infant turned her head toward the helicopter's window, her crying ceasing as if she'd heard something. James followed her gaze, nothing but clouds. Then the radio static crackled in a strange, rhythmic pattern that made the baby sigh and settle. The nurse's eyes widened. "Doc!" That almost sounded like Dash. Back in the gorge, Thunder, as the team had started calling him, lay motionless in the red dirt. Elena worked frantically, flushing his infected wounds with saline that ran pink down his legs. "We're losing him," she shouted over the wind. Wild mustangs rarely survive transport trauma, but staying meant certain death. As Marcus prepped the equine ambulance, the stallion's breathing grew dangerously shallow, until Sarah had an idea. She pressed the baby's discarded blanket to his nostrils. The effect was instantaneous. Thunder's head jerked up, his eyes rolling wildly as he scented his charge. With a groan that seemed to come from his very soul, the stallion staggered upright, allowing them to load him into the trailer. As the doors closed, Elena caught one last glimpse of his face pressed against the window, still searching for the infant he'd protected against all odds. The medevac's rotor wash sent dust devils spinning across the canyon floor as Thunder reared against his lead rope, his bandaged leg buckling under the strain. "He's trying to follow her," Marcus bellowed over the noise. Elena made a split-second decision that would later make headlines. "Bring the baby to the window," she screamed to the flight medic. As the helicopter hovered 20 feet up, the medic held the swaddled infant against the glass. The transformation was miraculous. Thunder went statue still. His ears pricked forward, his nostrils flaring to catch that precious scent one last time. The baby pressed her tiny hand against the window. Some claimed later it was just the angle of the light, but everyone present swore they saw the stallion nod before stepping back regally, granting permission for his human foal to leave. As the helicopter banked toward Lexington, Thunder's mournful whinny chased after it, carrying across miles of wilderness. The neonatal ICU at Lexington Children's Hospital buzzed with controlled chaos as nurses swarmed the Miracle Canyon baby. But when they tried to remove the tattered pink blanket for washing, the infant's shrieks pierced the ward. "Leave it," Dr. Mitchell ordered, noticing something the others had missed. The baby's tiny fist was clenched around a single, coarse bay horsehair woven into the fabric. 70 miles away in the equine critical care unit, Thunder stood motionless except for his twitching nostrils, as if trying to catch a scent only he could detect. The full monitor showed his heart rate sinking inexplicably with the NICU readouts 112 beats per minute exactly. Meanwhile, Sheriff's Deputy Maria Santos examined the blankets tag under UV light, revealing a laundry mark that would crack the case wide open. Some bonds, it seemed, couldn't be broken by distance or human cruelty. The neonatal ward at Lexington Children's Hospital hummed with quiet urgency as Dr. James Mitchell reviewed the Canyon baby's charts. Despite perfect vitals, the infant, now dubbed Isabella by the nurses, refused all formula, her tiny face scrunching in distress. Then something extraordinary happened. A young intern's phone accidentally played a video of galloping horses. Isabella's head snapped toward the sound, her chubby arms reaching. "Again," James ordered, his medical training warring with wonder. As the hoofbeats played once more, The baby's lips curved in her first true smile since rescue. Nurse Brenda wiped her eyes. "That child don't want lullabies," she whispered. "She wants to hear her horse." Sheriff's Deputy Maria Santos spread the pink blanket across the evidence table, her latex gloves catching on something near the hem. Under UV light, faded laundry markings glowed. RMH number 217. The Riverbend Maternity Hospital, 40 miles north. Maria's stomach dropped. This wasn't some backwoods abandonment. This was calculated. Her radio crackled with updates. Security footage showed a young woman in a nurse's scrubs leaving with a 6-month-old 3 days prior. Not a mother. A kidnapper. And that meant Isabella's real family was out there somewhere, aching for their stolen child. The canyon's access road told a haunting story. Fresh tire grooves veered sharply off the old mining trail, ending at a scraggly juniper. There, investigators found imprints in the dirt, kneeling marks beside tiny footprints. "She prayed before leaving her," Deputy Santos murmured, brushing away cigarette butt stamped with lipstick. Then her flashlight caught something metallic in the brush. A hospital ID badge for Jessica Morales, Riverbend Maternity LPN. The photo showed tired eyes and a forced smile. In the distance, thunder rumbled, nature's ominous punctuation to a crime scene without a villain. Only victims. The interrogation room's fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets as Jessica Morales rocked in her chair, her chipped nail polish scraping the table. "You don't understand," she begged Deputy Santos. "They were going to sell her." Between sobs, a horrifying story emerged. A black market adoption ring operating through the hospital. Threats against Jessica's own toddler if she talked. "I knew that stallion," she whispered. "He'd come to the canyon edge every spring. I thought, just for a few hours." Her confession ended with her forehead hitting the table, her whispered mantra hanging in the air. "The horse was supposed to protect her until I came back." Back at the equine ICU, Dr. Elena Rodriguez examined Thunder's x-rays under the harsh clinic lights. What she found made her blood run cold. Embedded in the stallion's shoulder were 4 snapped-off canine teeth. Mountain lion. "This wasn't just an attack," she told Marcus, pointing to the radiograph. "See how the wounds circle his torso?" He positioned himself between that cat and the baby. The timeline hit them simultaneously. Thunder had been guarding Isabella for nearly 36 hours before the hiker arrived. 36 hours of standing sentry while bleeding, while starving, while every instinct screamed at him to flee. Elena's pen clattered to the floor. My God! He adopted her. The hospital playroom's one-way glass revealed a scene that would later grace magazine covers. Isabella, propped on a quilt, suddenly squealed with delight as the wall-mounted TV played a documentary on wild mustangs. Her tiny hands patted the screen whenever a bay stallion appeared. Child psychologist Dr. Rachel Nguyen adjusted her notes. "This isn't just recognition," she told the observing team. "Watch how she leans toward the audio speakers during whinnies. That horse didn't just save her body. He imprinted on her psyche." As if to prove the point, Isabella pressed her cheek against a plush toy horse, sighing the way infants do for their mothers. The courtroom buzzed as family court judge Eleanor Westbrook adjusted her bifocals, her gaze sweeping over the unusual petitioners. Dr. Mitchell with medical charts, Deputy Santos with evidence photos, and, most remarkably, Dr. Elena Rodriguez holding an iPad showing Thunder's live feed from the equine center. "Your Honor," Elena pleaded. Isabella's cortisol levels dropped 40% when exposed to hoarse vocalizations. The judge's pen hovered. No precedent existed for ordering animal visitation in foster care. Then the bailiff handed up new documents. A sworn statement from kidnapper-turned-protector Jessica Morales. "That stallion loved her when I couldn't." The judge's gavel cracked like a rifle shot. Approved. The hospital garden erupted in chaos as the horse trailer rounded the corner. Thunder, his wounds still bandaged, erupted in a series of piercing whinnies that sent sparrows skyward. Inside the building, Isabella startled in her therapist's arms, her head whipping toward the windows. "She knows," Nurse Brenda gasped. Then, the moment that would be replayed on newsreels worldwide, As Thunder's silhouette appeared in the courtyard, the previously silent baby screamed, "He!" with startling clarity. The stallion's response was instantaneous. He dropped his massive head to toddler height and stood motionless as Isabella's tiny fingers touched his velvet muzzle for the first time since the canyon. Even the hardened orderlies wept. The therapy session notes read like a fairy tale. After initial sniffing, Thunder had carefully encircled Isabella with his body, the same protective stance from the canyon, as she played with his mane. When she dozed off against his leg, the stallion didn't twitch a muscle for 53 minutes straight. But the true miracle came as they parted. As Jessica Morales, now in rehab, was allowed supervised visitation, Thunder, who should have feared the baby's kidnapper, stepped between them. Then after a long sniff, nudged Jessica's trembling hand toward Isabella. Equine behaviorist Dr. Samuel Carter shook his head. This isn't just forgiveness. This is understanding. The MRI results spread across the conference table like a bizarre Rorschach test. Dr. Mitchell traced the glowing neural pathways with his pen. See this activity in the superior temporal gyrus? It's lighting up for hoarse vocalizations the way normal babies respond to human speech. The team stared at the scans showing Isabella's brain literally rewiring around Thunder's whinnies. Developmental psychologist Dr. Nguyen tapped one startling image. And here, her mirror neurons fire identically whether she's hugging that stallion or seeing humans embrace. She's learning affection from a horse. A stunned silence followed. Some bonds, it seemed, could transcend species and science. The visitation room's flickering bulb cast shadows across Jessica Morales' hollow cheeks as she pressed shaking hands against the glass. "I named her Isabella," she whispered to Deputy Santos, her voice cracking like dry Kentucky clay, "after my grandmother who raised me in foster care." The recording captured every ragged breath as Jessica described black market adoption files hidden behind hospital supply closets, how she'd planned to hide the baby just long enough to gather evidence. "But then I saw him, that stallion standing watch near the canyon edge like some kind of angel." A single tear splashed onto the prison payphone. "Funny thing? I don't even believe in God." The foster parent's baby monitor caught it at 3:17 a.m., a sound so unexpected that Martha Jenkins spilled her chamomile tea. "He!" Isabella's voice rang clear through the static, followed by excited babbling. Martha crept into the nursery to find the toddler standing in her crib, clutching the plush horse Thunder's scent had been rubbed onto. He! The developmental specialist's report would later stun everyone. Isabella's first meaningful word wasn't mama or dada, but her toddler approximation of horse. When shown photos the next day, she pointed decisively at Thunder's image while the speech pathologist's pen froze mid-note. Some bonds began before language. The Bureau of Land Management hearing room erupted as rancher Jed Harlan slammed his Stetson on the table. "That's a wild stud worth $15,000 in breeding fees." Dr. Elena didn't blink, projecting Thunder's rehabilitation videos behind her. Footage of the stallion gently nuzzling Isabella's oxygen tube. "This horse," she said slowly, "just taught your granddaughter with cerebral palsy to grip a spoon." The room stilled. Even the stenographer paused as elderly rancher Margaret Sykes stood without her walker for the first time in years. "Jed," she drawled, "you're looking at the only Mustang in history with his own fan club." The vote passed 7. The construction crew found the first message tucked between cabin logs, a child's crayon drawing of a stick figure horse labeled, "My Thundy." Soon others followed. Notes from veterans who'd found sobriety visiting him, photos of autistic children grasping his mane. But it was the weathered note nailed above the door that made carpenters pause. "For the horse who loved my baby when I couldn't jam." As the October wind whistled through new rafters, something remarkable happened. Wild mustangs from Thunder's original herd gathered at the tree line, watching. The foreman crossed himself. "Ain't never seen horses approve a house before." The golden hour painted Thunder in molten light as he took his evening post, the exact spot where Isabella's car seat had last been secured. Ranch hands swore he'd stand motionless until the last sliver of sun vanished, nostrils flaring toward the winding mountain road. On October 17th, something changed. Thunder suddenly erupted in a thunderous greeting call. spinning in circles. An hour later, headlights appeared, Jessica's parole officer bringing her for the first supervised visit. Veterinarian Dr. Chen's hand hovered over the tranquilizer dart. "He knew," he murmured, lowering the weapon. "Lord help me. That horse knew she was coming before the car crested the ridge." Hurricane-force winds lashed the sanctuary as Elena struggled through knee-deep mud, her flashlight beam bouncing wildly. Thunder's stall stood empty, the gate swinging on broken hinges. "He's gone back to find her?" Jessica screamed over the storm, clutching Isabella's baby blanket to her chest. Search parties fanned out, their calls swallowed by thunder. At dawn, they found him. Not at the canyon, but 3 miles down the mountain road toward Lexington, standing sentry outside a boarded-up diner where Jessica once worked. The stallion's coat steamed in the newborn light, his eyes fixed eastward toward the city, and the hospital where Isabella battled pneumonia. Volunteer firefighter Ray Atkins almost missed it. A scrap of pink caught on barbed wire near Thunder's wandering path. Isabella's missing sock, the one she'd kicked off during her last visit. But what froze Ray's blood was the location. Half a mile from where the baby had originally been abandoned. "He was retracing their steps," the sheriff muttered, turning the tiny sock in his hands. Deputy Santos' radio crackled with an update from the hospital. Isabella's fever had broken at exactly 3:42 a.m. The timestamp on Ray's GPS when he'd found the sock? 3:42 a.m. The search party exchanged glances no one dared explain. The dawn of Thunder's first foal brought an unexpected audience. Isabella, now 4, pressed against the birthing stall's rails with Jessica's hands on her shoulders. As the wet, wobbly colt struggled upright, something miraculous happened. The foal's first act wasn't seeking milk, but stumbling directly to Isabella and resting his forehead against hers in perfect mimicry of Thunder's greeting. The vet's clipboard clattered to the floor. "That's impossible," she breathed. "Horses don't inherit behaviors." Yet there it was, the same protective arch over the child, the same gentle muzzle touches. Jessica's tears fell on her daughter's hair as Thunder watched, his aging eyes bright with what could only be pride. The video went viral for all the right reasons. 3-year-old Isabella, dressed in her favorite horse print pajamas, sitting cross-legged before the simple granite marker reading, "Thunderherd Guardian." Her lisping rendition of "You Are My Sunshine" carried on the spring breeze as she arranged dandelions in a careful circle. What the cameras almost missed was the real magic. The dozen wild mustangs gathered at the pasture's edge, ears pricked forward. When Isabella finished, the lead mare did something veteran wranglers had never witnessed. She approached, dropped a fresh sprig of bluegrass on the grave, and touched her nose to the child's hair before leading the herd away. Dr. Rachel Nguyen's research lab fell silent as the brain scan lit up like Vegas. "There," she pointed, voice trembling. Isabella's mirror neuron system responds to horse facial expressions exactly how typical brains react to human smiles. The comparison scans showed Thunder's whinny activating her language centers, his nuzzles triggering oxytocin spikes higher than most children show with parents. But the real shock came when they tested her with Thunder's foal. "Holy mother of..." The lab tech gasped as identical patterns flared. "She's not just bonded to one horse. Her brain recognizes their entire emotional language." The implications hung heavy. Some souls don't just cross species lines, they rewrite them. Jessica Morales stared at the 5-year AA chip in her calloused palm, the same hand that had once left a baby in the wilderness. The church basement smelled of stale coffee and hope as she stood before the group. "My daughter calls me Mama now," she whispered, voice breaking like ice over the Kentucky River. "But her first word? The name of the creature who taught me how to love." In the back row, Deputy Maria Santos discreetly wiped her eyes. The same hands that had cuffed Jessica now held photos of Isabella riding Thunder's foal, their matching brown curls bouncing in sync. Redemption, it seemed, came on horseback. The PTSD support group stood shoulder to shoulder at the sanctuary gate, their military tattoos stark against rolled-up sleeves. "Thought we were coming to help wild horses," chuckled Marine vet Tom Reynolds, watching his wheelchair-bound buddy reach trembling fingers toward a mustang. Then the miracle unfolded. One by one, Thunder's herd approached, pressing warm muzzles into scarred palms. "They know," whispered Dr. Elena, observing the vet's tear-streaked faces. By sundown, not a single man flinched at the fireworks celebrating the 4th of July. Some battle scars, it turned out, could only be healed by creatures who'd fought their own wars under the same stars. The Hollywood director never expected raw footage to upstage his scripted drama. There on the editing room screen played Thunder's final moments. Not the weak collapse they'd anticipated, but the old stallion struggling to his feet when Isabella entered the barn. His last act? Gently herding his now-grown foal toward the weeping girl before exhaling into her hair one final time. The sound engineer abruptly left the room. The grizzled cameraman from Afghanistan quietly set down his coffee. "Well, gentlemen," the director finally rasped. "We just witnessed a love story our script could never touch. The documentary would win an Emmy, but no one remembered the acceptance speech. Just that unforgettable nuzzle goodbye. The stationery was pink. The handwriting still childish. But the words carved a permanent mark on everyone who read them. Dear Thunder, I got my ears pierced today. Mama cried. Your grandson, remember Shadow? Tried to eat my hair ribbon. I won a blue ribbon at the county fair, but I gave it to Shadow because you would have wanted him to have it. Sometimes when the wind blows through the canyon, I still hear you calling me. I miss you every day. Love, your human foal." Jessica found the letter tucked in Shadow's stall, the edges softened by what appeared to be horse kisses. No one expected the 21-gun salute. Yet there they stood, a full military honor guard in dress blues, their polished boots gleaming as the flag was folded over Thunder's empty halter. "This stallion," Colonel Harris declared, "taught my men more about loyalty than West Point ever could." The real shock came when Shadow was led forward, and without training, the young stallion bowed his head precisely as the last note of taps faded. Later, they'd find out Dr. Elena had played the recording daily since Thunder's passing. But in that golden moment, every witness swore they felt something larger than coincidence move among them. The cold case files spilled across the prosecutor's table like ghosts waking. Hospital time cards, security footage, a nurse's aide uniform missing from the laundry. Jessica Morales wasn't working the day Isabella was taken, Detective Ruiz announced, pointing to time-stamped footage showing a different woman in scrubs carrying a pink bundle. The plot thickened like Kentucky bourbon. A black market ring targeting unwanted infants. A cover-up that went all the way to the hospital administrator. Jessica's mugshot from her arrest now took on new meaning. Not a kidnapper's face, but a rescuer's. The gavel came down hard. "Indict them all," the grand jury foreman ordered. Some secrets, it seemed, even Thunder couldn't carry to his grave. Retired nurse Brenda Wilcox's hands shook as she unfolded the 10-year-old memo. Discrepancy in morphine logs. Wing B, crib 217. The neonatal unit's darkest secret now had proof. "We thought it was SIDS," Brenda confessed to investigators, tears splashing on the yellowed paper. "But that morning, I saw the charge nurse switch the baby's ID bands." The revelation hit like a thunderclap. Isabella hadn't been abandoned because she was unwanted. She'd been stolen because she'd survived something she wasn't supposed to. Jessica Morales, it turned out, hadn't kidnapped a child. She'd rescued a witness. The vet tech almost missed it, the faint white marking on Shadow's left shoulder, visible only in certain light. Not a scar, but hair growing in the precise shape of a thunderbolt. "Impossible," Dr. Elena breathed, comparing it to photos of Thunder's mountain lion wounds. Yet there it was, as if the old stallion had stamped his heir. Shadow seemed to wear the mark with pride, always positioning himself between Isabella and perceived dangers. A low-flying hawk, a rattling tractor, even Jessica's new boyfriend. The local newspaper dubbed it the miracle of the living brand. Scientists called it pareidolia. But every evening at sunset, when Shadow took up his sire's vigil at the fence, no one needed an explanation. Governor Bashir's fountain pen hovered over the bill that would change everything. The Thunder Act, requiring trauma centers to provide animal-assisted therapy. The ceremony should have been routine. Then Shadow, brought as an honorary guest, did something no one anticipated. He ambled to the podium and nudged the governor's disabled grandson with his nose. The boy, who hadn't spoken since his accident, giggled and grabbed the horse's mane. "Well," the governor chuckled through tears, "I believe that's what they call a sign from above." The photo of Shadow signing the bill with an inky hoofprint would grace every major newspaper, proving once again that the best laws aren't written by politicians. They're inspired by love. It happened every June 8th at precisely 3:42 p.m., the anniversary of Thunder's passing. The birds stopped singing. The wind stilled. Even Shadow would freeze mid-graze, ears pricked toward the canyon where it all began. Scientists speculated about atmospheric pressure. The locals knew better. On the 10th anniversary, Isabella, now a gangly teenager, led a procession to Thunder's grave. As she placed her yearly letter beside the headstone, something extraordinary happened. A lone mustang, gray-muzzled with age, emerged from the treeline. The herd's original lead mare, long since retired, walked stiffly to the grave and dropped a sprig of wild mint before vanishing into the shadows. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full. The slick producer leaned across the diner table, sliding a check toward Jessica. "We're talking Oscar potential," he grinned. His smile faded when 13-year-old Isabella stood abruptly, her braids whipping as she marched out. Shadow waited outside, saddled and ready. As they galloped past the for sale signs developers had planted near Thunder's Canyon, the girl whispered into the horse's ear. That evening, Jessica returned the unsigned contract with a Polaroid attached. Isabella asleep against Shadow's side, her fingers tangled in his thunderbolt-marked mane. The caption read, "Some stories aren't for sale." The school auditorium buzzed as Isabella stepped onto the debate podium. "Today I'll argue against biopics exploiting real trauma," she announced, igniting murmurs. With calm precision, the teenager dissected Hollywood's portrayal of her story, the fabricated dialogue, the actor who'd never touched a horse. Then she clicked to a slideshow. Shadow nuzzling veterans, her mother's rehab graduation, Thunder's grave covered in children's drawings. "Real healing," she concluded. "Looks like this." The standing ovation lasted 7 minutes. Next week, a different offer arrived. A documentary crew volunteering to film her equine therapy program. This time, she signed. Each spring, the mustangs came, not to drink from the troughs, but to stand vigil at the canyon's edge where Thunder had once guarded a human foal. Ranch hands noticed the ritual. How the lead mare would pause exactly where the pink blanket had lain, nostrils flaring as if catching some eternal scent. On Isabella's 16th birthday, she rode Shadow out to meet them. The wild horses didn't bolt. They parted like a living gate, allowing her to ride deep into their formation before closing ranks around her. When she emerged minutes later, her cheeks were wet. Some conversations, it seemed, needed no words. Dr. Chen's study made headlines. Equine mourning behaviors documented in wild mustangs. The data was irrefutable. Each June 8th, Thunder's original herd exhibited lowered heart rates and gathered at the canyon. But it was Shadow who fascinated scientists. The horse had developed a ritual, carrying Isabella's old baby blanket to Thunder's grave at dawn, then standing sentry until sunset. Neurologists confirmed his brainwaves showed patterns identical to human grief. Yet when Isabella approached, his whinnies triggered her mirror neurons in perfect sync. They're not just mourning, Dr. Chen realized. They're comforting each other across species. The battered composition book fell from Jessica's old nurse's bag. Isabella hesitated before reading the entry dated the day before her abandonment. "They'll kill her if I go to the cops. But Thunder comes every spring. Wild as God made him, gentle as a saint. If I place her where he guards his herd, oh God, let him understand." The pages bore water stains, some from rain, others unmistakably tears. That evening, Isabella led Shadow to Jessica's bedroom and rested the journal in her mother's lap. The hug that followed lasted through dinner. Some truths, it seemed, were best written by love. The Grammy-winning songwriter didn't expect inspiration to strike at a county fair. But when he saw Isabella guiding Shadow through their therapy rounds, the way the horse dipped his head for wheelchair-bound kids to touch his thunderbolt mark, the chords came unbidden. You were born wild, but love made you tame. By the second chorus, the fairgrounds stilled. Jessica's hands flew to her mouth. Even Shadow stood motionless, ears pivoted forward. When the last note faded, the horse walked deliberately to the stage and blew softly across the guitar strings. The resulting single, Angel in Horsehide, would fund the sanctuary for decades. The veterinary report gathered dust until Isabella's pre-med studies brought it to light. Thunder's bones told a brutal truth. The mountain lion attack had shattered his shoulder years before the canyon. He lived in chronic pain, she whispered, tracing the x-rays. Yet the stallion had stood guard for 36 hours without flinching. Her anatomy professor nodded. Adrenaline can't explain that endurance. That night, Isabella curled against Shadow's side, her stethoscope capturing his steady heartbeat. Medical school would teach her many things, but Thunder had already taught the only lesson that mattered. Some love rewrites the laws of physiology. The circle closed on a golden autumn afternoon. 2-year-old Lila stretched tiny hands toward the elderly Shadow, his thunderbolt mark now silvered with age. "Easy, baby girl," Isabella murmured, guiding her daughter's fingers to the horse's velvet nose. Nearby, Thunder's great-grandfoal, a spirited colt with the same bay coat, nudged Jessica's shoulder. The old nurse's journal lay open on the picnic table, its final entry visible. "Love isn't something you earn. It's something wild that chooses you." As Lila's laughter mingled with Shadow's contented sigh, for generations of an improbable family basked in the dappled light. Senator Harris wiped her eyes as the bill passed unanimously. The Thunder Act now mandated equine therapy in all veterans' hospitals. But the real victory came in the amendment, sponsored by Isabella herself, requiring foster children to have animal companionship. "The data is clear," the young doctor testified, Shadow standing calmly behind her. "One unconditional bond can rewrite a traumatized brain." As cameras flashed, the old lead mare from Thunder's original herd appeared on Capitol Hill's lawn, as if summoned by history. The photograph of her nuzzling the senator's disabled grandson would grace textbooks for decades. Some laws, it seemed, were written by hooves before pens. The documentary's final frame lingers on Isabella's question as Shadow's silhouette melts into sunset. Viewers worldwide would pause their remotes, remembering the teacher who stayed late, the neighbor who fed them during hard times, the dog who waited years. In Kentucky, the wild herd still visits the canyon each June. Lila, now a barrel racing champion, leaves dandelions on Thunder's grave. And when the wind blows just right through the Red River Gorge, old-timers swear they hear it. The echo of a stallion's whinny, and the laughter of a baby who learned love from the wildest heart of all.